You've just come back from your first overseas trip since COVID. Tell us about where you've been.
Well, I've been to spend 4 days in Suva and 5 days in Taveuni Island in Fiji. The primary purpose of going was to visit our 3 Hiranga Tuakura partners that we have in Fiji. That's Caritas Fiji, a social empowerment education program, and the Tutu Rural Training Centre up in Taveuni. Key purpose of the visits really were to re-engage with their partners. As you mentioned, haven't seen them for some years, in most cases 3 years, to re-engage that relationship, but really a chance to connect with our people in Fiji and to enjoy spending time with them and understanding and learning from them how they're going with the Hiranga Tuakura program. The 3 partners we work with in Fiji, by far the largest one and the one I spent the most time with was Tutu Rural Training Centre up in Taveuni Island. However, all 3 partners are involved in similar work around supporting rural communities, often quite remote, small rural communities, around connecting them with their vanua, their land, their history, their ancestors, that supports their way of being, their culture. How we do this is really activated through a climate resilient, nutritional livelihood support with agriculture. Assisting them with traditional crops, but perhaps planted and managed in a way that's more climate resilient, more weather resilient. As we know, a lot of cyclones come through Fiji from time to time, but also in a way to offset the rising trend towards low calorific food imports around noodles and so forth. So it's reinvigorating that whole rural conversation around food security. The other aspect that we're highly involved in is supporting local people to be self-employed using the skills they have. So it's financial literacy and small business management and how to make the most of what's available in their local communities, whether that's producing creative handmade products, but also how to market those and sell them maybe at a local market or even a resort. So there's the 2 areas really: climate resilient agriculture and shock resilient livelihoods.
What are the biggest challenges that local Fijians face?
Well, recently the effects of COVID-19 have really impacted many communities in Fiji, not just the resort and tourism industry, but the downflow effects of those where a lot of people have been employed in that industry have found themselves needing to find other ways to support themselves. Fiji does have a system of social welfare support, but it's nowhere near as comprehensive as New Zealand, for example. And so often people are left to fend for themselves. So that's created an economic crisis for many communities and many people. It has also created a bit of a crisis when people go back to their home village to plant so they can at least have food, and many Fijians have access to land. However, they've lost the ability the knowledge on how to plant well, how to look after the soil, how to manage their crops. So there's quite a gap at the moment in Fiji on that knowledge base within rural communities particularly. In the cities, probably the major issues, social issues anyway, that I'm aware of are around informal housing. There are over 250 settlement or informal settlements now around Suva, Nandi and Lautoka particularly, and these informal settlements have a lot of issues around low health and educational outcomes. Poverty, many of these families will live below the poverty line in Fiji, that's under $10 a day, and are really struggling with the day-to-day life. So the challenges vary depending on where you live in Fiji, and they shouldn't necessarily be dependent just on tourism. However, Fiji has taken a large hit because it was so reliant on tourism in the past. And as it builds up again over time, hopefully in many cases they'll be able to build their lives back.
How would you describe the Caritas response after Cyclone Yasa during the pandemic in Fiji?
Sure, Bella. Well, after Cyclone Yasa, we were fortunate to be able to successfully propose to Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade to access some funding to support our rural communities, particularly again in the Taveuni Island and that region called the Cyclone province in the northern, sort of northeastern part of Fiji, where a lot of the cyclone damage was felt. So we were able to supply, through our partners in Fiji, plant material, knowledge, some assistance, immediate assistance with food and fuel, but also in perhaps a longer term or a 1 year response since the cyclone hit in just December 2020 through to end of 2021. Around agriculture again, how to replant their crops that were lost. In many cases the land was completely stripped of any vegetation, so we were able to assist with planting and getting them up and going again. But also to support Tutu Rural Training Centre, one of our partners, to get them up operational because they're such a large training organisation and many communities are reliant on them being able to send people to get agricultural training. So our initial focus was to get them up and running so they're able to do their job well, to be back online again for students in the Fiji region. Well, I love what I do, and it's hard to describe what I do day to day, but last week being in Fiji was a reminder to me of the joy and the privilege of being able to spend time with their partners in their own country, in their own culture, to understand what it means for them to have the support of Caritas, Aotearoa New Zealand, but also the support of the general public in this country as well. So it's a real privilege to be able to be the person who can convey this support to our partners. Hard to describe that feeling. It's exciting and it's fun, and it also feels it's quite humbling as well. The work that our partners do is often the real work. They're at the coalface. They face a lot of challenges. So for me, I have an office here in Wellington and I have a home here in Wellington. And life is fairly secure. For many of our partners, life is not so secure. So for me, the work I do is to open up a space to enable them to be more secure in their own lives and to achieve their own goals and their vision for their own futures. And it's a mighty privilege to walk with other people in that space. There's many ways to support the work that we're doing in Fiji. I guess for me, one of the key aspects is overturning that common misconception that Fiji is just one big resort, big playground. Yes, it's a beautiful place. It is warm. You'll probably notice I've got sunburn on my forehead. I got a bit of sun last week, which was really nice in the middle of a Wellington winter. But there's a lot of challenges with communities in Fiji, many challenges as we've touched on earlier. So to support the work we're doing, there's a lot of ways. Firstly, through prayer, really appreciate that. Practical support can be done through our own website. There's a donate page in there. You can call 0800 221 022 to donate. Or you can do a direct bank transfer to support the work we're doing. We have it was a 5 year, we're 1 year into a 5 year program that requires a lot of funds from within our own donors, and so we'd certainly appreciate any support that can be given towards this program. I've had the privilege of seeing the results and the impact of that support, and I hope today I've been able to convey a little bit of the work we're doing there and to help the understanding around what it is that we do, to encourage people to be generous but also generous with their prayers as well, and the awareness. Tell your friends, tell your workmates, you're having dinner with the family, talk about the work that we do if it's appropriate, and to encourage people to think about places like Fiji, for example, as not just a resort but a place that does require our support and input from time to time.